Have you ever stood before the ruins of an ancient palace and felt a shiver of awe? That's the echo of unimaginable power. We remember the pharaohs and emperors as ambitious men, but what if they truly believed they were gods among mortals? In the earliest civilizations, the boundary between heaven and earth was thin. The gods were present, shaping floods, crops, and destinies. When a king claimed divine connection, it wasn't just ego, it was a cosmic statement. Their rule was part of the universe's sacred order. To understand this, we travel back over 5,000 years to Sumer, in the land between the rivers, where civilization and kingship were born. The Sumerians saw the night sky as the home of their gods, who sent down power to humanity. Why did people follow these god kings? The answer lies in the interplay of religion, politics, and the human need for meaning in a chaotic world. Let's peel back the layers of time and listen to the whispers of the first kings who dared to claim a place among the gods. In ancient Sumer, cities like Uruk and Eridu rose from the plains, crowned by towering ziggurats, bridges between earth and sky. The Sumerian King List, one of history's most fascinating documents, begins not with men, but with a claim. After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was an Eridu. For the Sumerians, kingship was a divine gift, not a human invention. The king, or Lugal, was the custodian of a sacred force, the chief intermediary between people and gods. His duty: perform rituals, maintain order, and keep the gods pleased. Success meant divine favor. Disaster signaled cosmic failure. The King List blends myth and history, showing that for Sumerians the deeds of gods and kings were one story. Kingship was an unbroken chain from the moment the gods decided humanity needed a shepherd. This wasn't just history, it was theology, a sacred narrative justifying the king's power. The king's authority was cosmic, his rule a living link between heaven and earth. In Sumer, to rule was to embody the will of the gods. Early Sumerian kings were head priests, stewards of their city's god, managing temples and leading worship. Their power was immense, but rooted in service, not divinity. As city-states grew and wars raged, rulers needed unchallengeable authority. The king evolved from servant to demigod, no longer just chosen, but born of divine blood. Gilgamesh, legendary king of Uruk, was said to be two-thirds divine. This claim elevated kings above all rivals. To rebel was blasphemy, not just treason. The shift was both political and spiritual, a masterstroke of propaganda and belief. Divine parentage made the king's rule a birthright, not a job. His word became law, his authority absolute. The king's divinity was the ultimate source of legitimacy, placing him above all others. In Sumer, the king was no longer just a bridge to the gods, he was part of the divine order itself. In Sumer, legitimacy was everything. Power alone wasn't enough. A king needed a story everyone believed. Claiming divine connection transformed raw power into rightful authority, granted by the heavens. The king's authority came not from people or councils, but directly from the gods. Any challenge to his rule was sacrilege, an attack on the cosmic order. This ideology neutralized rivals and fostered stability. Few dared risk the gods' wrath. Divine kingship also shaped diplomacy. Treaties and threats carried the weight of cosmic retribution. Kingship unified people under a divine shepherd, creating shared identity and purpose. Massive projects, ziggurats, canals, were possible because the king's divinity bound society together. The king's divine nature was the glue of the state, transforming individuals into a powerful collective. In Sumer, the king's legitimacy was written in the stars. Divine kingship was the foundation of civilization's first empires. Sumerians lived in a world of uncertainty, floods, droughts, disease, and war. The god king was the ultimate guarantor of order, the bulwark against chaos. His divine status gave him authority to enforce laws, like the Code of Ur-Nammu, presented as divine justice, not personal opinion. Law became sacred, obedience, a moral duty. The king managed the city's economy as a religious obligation, ensuring prosperity for all. Temples, controlled by the king, were economic engines, providing for the god's household and the people. prosperity was proof of divine favor and effective leadership. The king's divinity was a source of collective security and hope. In a dangerous world, the God King was the anchor in the storm. His rule promised that order would triumph over chaos. The belief in a God King shaped minds as much as politics. For ordinary people, living under a demigod was both terrifying and reassuring. Awe ensured obedience, but also gave life meaning. Serving the king was serving the divine order. Hardship became part of a cosmic drama. The king embodied collective identity, a living link to the gods. For the king, believing in his own divinity brought confidence and strength, but also immense pressure. Every disaster was a personal failure, a sign of weakened divine favor. The king lived in constant vigilance, responsible for the fate of his people. His divinity was not a privilege, but a relentless high-stakes duty. Sumer's gods, the Anunnaki, were a pantheon, a cosmic board of directors. An, Enlil, and Enki shaped the world, their decisions determining mortal fate. The gods were powerful, but unpredictable. Humanity's survival depended on appeasing them. The king was the official liaison, humanity's chief diplomat to the divine realm. His rituals and offerings maintained the crucial relationship with the Anunnaki. When kings like Shulgi declared themselves gods, they claimed a seat in the divine family. Not as equals, but as junior partners. The king's rule was an extension of the god's governance. He was the earthly CEO, appointed by the celestial board. His authority was absolute, rooted in the ultimate powers of the universe. The Epic of Gilgamesh reveals the complexity of divine kingship. Gilgamesh, two-thirds god, begins as a tyrant, his divinity a license for oppression. The gods send Enkidu to challenge him. Their friendship transforms Gilgamesh. After Enkidu's death, Gilgamesh confronts his own mortality and seeks eternal life. He fails, learning that immortality is for the gods alone. Returning to Uruk, he finds meaning not in his power, but in the city he built. The epic's lesson: true immortality lies in legacy, not eternal life. The divine part of a king gives strength, the human part, wisdom and empathy. Kingship's highest form is not privilege, but responsibility. The king's duty is to build, protect, and leave a lasting civilization. Gilgamesh's journey is the story of every god king, from arrogance to wisdom, from divine power to mortal duty. In the end, the greatest kings are remembered for what they create, not what they claim to be. Sumer faded, but the idea of the God King echoed across history. In Egypt, the pharaoh was a living god, the state's central pillar for millennia. Did this concept begin in Mesopotamia? The parallels are striking, and the influence possible. The ruler as bridge between human and divine, responsible for cosmic order, has a distinctly Sumerian flavor. The echo reached the West. Alexander the Great and Roman emperors claimed divinity to legitimize their rule. The desire to link power to the heavens is a recurring theme in history. Sumerian kings pioneered this idea, fusing politics and faith to impose order on chaos. Their model of kingship still haunts the corridors of power today.